Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Sometimes it's not about getting fed. It's about watching the other guy get eaten. In our first story, the OP decided to mess with a cop and took him to court. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. That time I employed the Worcester Sheriff to bring the Worcester Police to court. Years ago, I got a speeding ticket in Worcester, Mass. It was a typical speed trap where they sit at the bottom of a steep hill, knowing that lots of people will exceed the very low speed limit because gravity. It was bullcrap, so I decided to fight it and at least make them work for their $100 fine. I read everything I could on fighting radar tickets, and one strategy was to check whether the police department had proper FCC documents on the radar used. If they don't, the radar info is inadmissible, and you probably win your case. I went to the Worcester police station and found the records department down in the basement. I showed them the ticket and explained that I wanted to view the paperwork for the radar that was used to record my speed. I had to wait a couple of minutes, but some official came out and sternly informed me that civilians don't have access to that information. Okay. I asked a few people how you request records for a court case, and it turns out that, at least in Massachusetts, that's one of the things the sheriff's office does. So I went to them, paid them $50, I know, on a $100 ticket, but I've always enjoyed tilting the windmills, and described the documents I required. I have to admit that by the time I had to go to court, I'd kind of forgotten about the sheriff's department, but I did notice this police officer sitting in the audience section with all the other people fighting tickets. This guy wasn't your typical police officer, though. He was wearing a very fancy uniform, and his hat had all kinds of gold braid on it. He did not look happy. Traffic court being traffic court, it's all kinds of disorganized with a bunch of citizens sitting around and waiting for things to start. And of course, the proceedings plod along at a snail's pace. Finally, my name is called after about half an hour, and this police officer comes over to me and explains that he is, captain or lieutenant, I forget now, in charge of the entire records division for the Worcester Police, and he has the radar records in his hand for me to examine. So I look it over, and it seems to all be in order, so I thank him. He's visibly angry about having to spend his morning sitting in traffic court over a $100 citation. Totally worth the $50. To this day, I don't know whether someone at the sheriff's department was just messing with the police department by naming the top guy in the records request, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Don't want to let the citizens see your records? Fine. I would have loved to have been there when the sheriff's department showed up to serve the head guy with a court order. Oh, by the way, I lost the case. And our second story. What are you going to do? Sit on me? Okay. My parents used to own a laundromat, and every so often I'd help them clean it up, collect the money. They had a seating area with a few benches for customers to sit on, and a few magazines and kids' books to read, generally old stuff that was donated or from the dollar store. One day we noticed that all the magazines/books were missing. Not a huge deal, as they were all months old/cheap books, and that happened every so often, so we just refilled the books and cleaned the machines. A few days later, it happened again. All the books were gone. Again, a bit frustrating, but not a big deal. We refilled them again and continued cleaning. But then it happened again a few days later, and a few days again after that. We were actually getting low on kids' books and had to buy some more from the dollar store. My dad and I finally had a look at the security cameras for the last few days, and we saw the same guy came in about 1 p.m. He was short and bald with a brown coat. He would walk in the front door, go straight to the back, grab all the books, put them in his coat, then walk out. My dad was pissed. He said he was going to take the day off work to wait for the guy and ask him not to come back. I told my dad I'd do it as this was a side business for him, and I wasn't working at the time. He told me to be stern, but not to hurt him or anything. I was there the next day between 12 and 2. Just before 1:30, I see him. Short, bald, brown coat. Our security cameras weren't the best, so I waited until I saw him grab the books before I walked over, just in case it was the wrong guy who just happened to look the same. But as soon as I saw him start to stuff them into his coat, I walked over. "Excuse me." I'm a theater-trained actor, so it boomed a bit and made him jump. "Please put those back." He looked at me, and to be honest, he didn't look 100% there, but he understood that he'd been caught. He spoke softly. I'm sorry. I just like looking at the pictures." I eased back a little. "That's fine. You're more than welcome to look at them while you're doing laundry, but you're not allowed to just come here and take them." He put the books back on the table. "I'm sorry," he repeated as he quickly walked out the door. He looked like he'd gotten the idea. I quickly cleaned up and headed home. We thought that would be the end of it until the next day when everything was gone again. We checked the security cameras again, and it was him again. This time my dad went on a Saturday, and I saw the camera footage after. Basically the same, but my dad actually reached into his coat and took the magazines out. We didn't have audio, but I could tell he was yelling at him. My dad told me that if it happened again, he was going to call the police, and then he asked to make sure that the guy understood, which we saw him clearly nod on camera, so apparently he did, and my dad let him leave. A few days later, all the books were gone again, and the cameras showed it was the same guy again. My dad actually took a few days off work, and we went all afternoon to the laundromat. We saw him come in once, and my dad yelled at him to leave, basically chasing him out with a broom, again telling him he's going to call the cops. Finally, the day came. My dad and I were there as well as a regular customer. He was a farmer, about 300 pounds. My dad and I went to the restaurant a few stores over and picked up some takeout for lunch. On our way back, we saw the laundromat door close just as we left the restaurant. We didn't think much until we go in, and the guy was back shoving the books into his coat. My dad lost it and charged at him, yelling about calling the police. He turned and looked at us bolting for the door. I quickly blocked him, shoving him backwards. He tried to go a different way around a table, but the farmer was there blocking him. "Please, just let me leave," he asked. But my dad, who was on the phone, said, "No, we've given him plenty of chances and he's going to wait for the police." My dad and I are larger guys, and like I said, the farmer was pushing 300 pounds. He looked at us all and smugly said, "You can't keep me here. What are you going to do, sit on me?" I heard the farmer say, "Okay," as he charged the guy, pushing him back onto the bench, and he sat right on top of him. The guy squirmed a bit, but there wasn't much he could do. He yelled for help, but there was no one around but us. The police showed up, and the farmer finally got up. The guy tried to run past the police, but they were able to catch him. Turns out he was known to police because he'd steal small things from the other stores around there. He lived in a halfway house nearby, and one of the police who showed up was actually one of his mentors in his spare time. He asked us not to press charges, which my dad said he wouldn't as long as he never came in here again. He agreed, and other than the odd time seeing him walking through the parking lot, he never actually did come back in again. We gave the farmer a free load of laundry as a thank you, and I like to think he taught that guy a valuable lesson. Don't mess with fat guys. And our last story. My son wants to go in your electronic wheelchair. Backstory. I'm a 29-year-old female and have been confined to a wheelchair since I was 17. I'm a quadriplegic and can use a manual wheelchair at home, but use a power wheelchair in public for practical reasons. I have mostly full use of my upper body and partial use of my lower body. This happened about a month ago before the crap hit the fan with COVID-19 in my town. I was downtown shopping for supplies for my inevitable self-isolation when I heard a deafening squeal of a child, about 12. EK, ooh, that's a cool scooter. How fast does it go? Me, thanks, little man. Yeah, it goes pretty fast. EK, can I have a go? Me, thinking you meant to sit on my lap and I drive him around, which in any other scenario I would have been happy to do, COVID-19 and all. Sorry, dude, but not today. The kid says, "Oh, okay," and stomps away. I thought that was the end of it. But I wouldn't be here if it was. A few minutes later, I hear the ground start to tremble as the Megatron Karen approaches. Oh boy, I thought, this is going to be fun. EP, excuse me, what did you say to my son? Me, confused, he wanted to ride in my wheelchair. I said no. EP, What did you just say to me? You need to respect your elders and not talk down to my poor little angel. You don't even need that wheelchair. I know your legs work. You're just faking it to get attention. Now let my son have a ride. She wouldn't have been much older than 35, so obviously not my elder. But even if my nan spoke to me like that, I wouldn't reply kindly. Me, all of my patience officially gone. My wheelchair costs more than your car, and you want me to miraculously heal out of my chair so your dirty crotch goblin can take a joyride? Okay. Edit. Crotch Goblin was smirking at me the entire time. Here's where the story gets graphic. I have hypermobility, which makes my joints extremely flexible and dislocation easy and relatively painless. I also have titanium screws inside my neck that creak loudly when I move a certain way. Bring on the Frankenstein. I leaned forward, pushed down with my right arm, dislocating my shoulder blade with a loud pop as I twisted my neck to make it creak, then pushed down with my left hand to contort my arm and hand in an unnatural position. This all happened in a few seconds, but it was enough to make Karen, red-faced and horrified, scream out, "Stop! It's okay! EK, let's go!" And they hurried out of the store. I could hear laughter coming from behind me as a friend who works there walked up to me and said, "That was mean." He knew me well and had seen me pull that trick before. Needless to say, I never had an issue like that again. It's a small town and news travels fast. Don't mess with the girl in the wheelchair. OP, you're metal. I like your way of thinking. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.